So it's a little before 4 o'clock, almost 4 o'clock. I think that's about a good time we wanted to wrap. We have a few minutes here for a Q&A, and then you can get on your way on Fridays back to your domiciles, right? I hope this was helpful and good. It's probably a different change of pace from just digging into code and some of these workshops and whatever. But I think it's a really important topic, because this is really where a lot of our happiness comes from. It's what we work on, how we work on what we work on, and who we work on, how we work with stuff. It's the who, how, and the what that really makes us happy or not happy. I'm convinced. Of course, we have to be paid decently too. Obviously, but pay is never the only thing. You can be paid well and have a crappy environment, and you're looking for a way to get out of it, right? Yeah. Do you have a question?
Well, sort of, I've been listening to the Steve Jobs CDs.
Yeah.
I get an image sort of as you're talking about how you create and craft a team that collaborates well and works well. And from what I'm understanding of Steve Jobs, is very combative.
Yeah.
Yet I think there's a positive aura around what Steve
Oh,
Jobs
totally.
is.
Yeah.
So if you could contrast that.
Yeah. So, but I think what Steve pulled out of people was a passion for not accepting anything less than a great customer experience. And so from that perspective, that's what he drove. Now, he did it in a very competitive way, and I've seen people who, like to, I don't know how much he created competition between teams. I think he had some of that. I know leaders who do that. I'm not a fan of that. I think it works to some degree, but I don't think it works. I don't think it works the right way. That's my feeling, because I just kind of trust that people are basically good and want to do the right thing, and if we give them the right environment, we see people blossom. Some people won't, some people will. We had that at PayPal, where we had some leaders, when I was consulting for them in 2010 for a little while in the summer, I could see a lot of their problems, and they had this very competitive nature between groups, and they were doing all this redundant work among teams and to outdo each other, right? And that's what I'm unwinding right now, is that kind of nonsense, right? Why? Now, but leaders are different. Everybody does things different. Who can argue with Steve Jobs' success, right? I'm like here, Steve's there, so I wouldn't have too much freedom to critique him. Other than that, I would choose to do it that way.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Other questions? Comments? Or Friday? Anything else on jQuery Mobile?
How do you guys handle version control?
Well, we're using GitHub.
But okay, so you guys are working at 1 week, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How do you guys deal with, somebody's working on one team's working on one feature, another team's working on another feature. Maybe they have a few interrelated.
Well, you're not going to believe this, but what we basically have right now is a single release process for all PayPal products.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to try to break that apart. So we'll run into the other problem later. But right now we do it. When I got there, it was like, it says build 88. I went, for which product? They're like, oh, for all of PayPal. What? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been a monolithic code base for one, and that's being broken apart now, right? But
how are you guys thinking about stuff?
well, at Netflix, what happened was, as we moved the cloud, we moved to services. We naturally broke everything up into very, very small pieces, right? And so we didn't go with like a jar, kind of file model. We went with a services, kind of contract model, and try to assure backward compatibility and stuff like that. If you broke that, you had to be pretty clear about it. So once you sort of had that, kind of a little bit of highly lined, loosely coupled, you get away from some of the, because Netflix, when I first got there too, was all of Netflix was on one release cycle, right? And we released every 2 weeks, I don't think we even had build numbers. We just had dates, That's right. When we had like I think it was called. Got to go back in my head now. Yeah, monthly, baseline, and release. It was only 3 branches. Wasn't like the normal trunk kind of thing. It worked well for us for a while.
Just as messed up as what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping you had like a magic bullet for me or something.
Right.
As soon as you said the 3 releases, I'm like, all right, we're done.
Exactly. Well, somebody else has a better idea. Cool. Any other thoughts?
What are your thoughts on, like, we've been talking recently about, because we do kind of the same process, like every couple of release.
Yeah.
We follow like a Scrum kind of methodology, and so somebody's been talking about Kanban more, like how they kind of can do things in more of like a sort of ticket release, like just kind of like a rolling
Yeah.
deployment.
Yeah.
Do you have any biases with
Well,
it?
I would say the first step you should do is internally, besides that release process, you internally should move to continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous test yourself, right? Because you can't actually do the continuous release until you have the internal thing right, and nobody can control that. Nobody can tell you no on that. So the best thing is to start exercising that. We quickly instituted on GitHub, so that we have Fusion, which is Hudson or Jenkins, I forget which one's behind the curtains on that one. One of those two. Is running in the background to do continuous integration and tests and stuff, right? So in GitHub, every 10 minutes or so, when things have stabilized, nothing's been checked in for 10 minutes or whatever, or some period of time passes.
We have those two, like we have integration, like stuff. that
Yeah.
goes through and
Yeah, I think that's your first step to get that down. And then I think the other big problem you have is, as long as you have the Scrum stuff with the 2-week cycles, that's when you're going to do your release or whatever. Is there a strong reason to go quicker than 2 weeks?
No, so I think there's we have a little bit of a disconnect between the business and developers as far as story pointing and stuff like that. And,
So the time they get stuff on the train, it's like, maybe 4 weeks before they get it, and they want it quicker, and
yeah.
because of when they get it, cycle or whatever.
Yeah. So then we have that big, that build up time of let's get all of our tickets together, and then we have this big meeting to story point everything, and then we'll
Right.
develop it. Kind of it's like this big amount of work shifts from the business, the developers, the QA. It doesn't
Right.
move like real smoothly and continuously. It kind of comes in batches and moves through the stages.
Right.
Deploy.
Right. Well, we have seen in the putting together Lean UX, that we get less of that because there's less surprises, because we're in that constant, at least somebody in the team's in a constant kind of building all the time phase where things are getting put in, and they're not tied to the build release cycle. They're more in the lean learn cycle, which can be dropped down at any time into the build, the build deliver cycle. So that helps some because, just the fact that product and everybody is seeing the stuff get built, even not ready to release yet, sort of puts some comfort level there. And also, of course, flushes out bad ideas or improves, ideas, makes them better. So I think that sort of gets back a little bit to the root of the problem. It's funny, the whole 2-week cycle, or going, the only way you can go down to a faster cycle and all that stuff is you got to get the setup and tear down, the ceremonies that are involved in setting up and tearing down a scrum, a sprint. You got to get those down to where they're really, really small and easy to do, or continuous themselves. Otherwise, you can't do it. Otherwise, it's better to move to a 3-week cycle. One of our teams that's doing Lean, they're actually doing on a 3-week cycle. This probably has to do with the person running that used to work for me, and I argued that our 2-week cycle was actually not helping us. We didn't have, it wasn't a website, it was internal customers. And I said we should be doing 3-week because 2-week we had all this setup and tear down, and we had the same amount of setup and tear down for a 3-week cycle as a 2-week cycle almost. So it'd be more efficient to run it as a 3-week cycle. We get more stuff done and spend less time on the drama of setup and tear down. And it was. I had two teams. I did sort of an A/B test, between the two, and the team that's running the 3-week cycles was much happier, less of this, the agile drama and all the other stuff that went on. But it's the opposite of the continuous deployment. So I don't know. I think it probably depends on the team or what you're doing. But they're doing that. And what he also did in that team was, because it's so hard to release code to the wild, to the production, it's still too hard. That team, when it was first kicking off, was wanting to go through a full release cycle, on that 2-week rolling basis, 6 weeks ahead, and all that. He said, no, let's don't do that. Let's plan on hitting the Build 97, which is going to be at the end of October. But I think it was every 3 weeks, we'll release to our staging or cloud deployment, right? And so we go through the release cycle, but to a much less lightweight thing. We'll have QA. We'll do all the other ceremonies that are needed without all the drama of doing a release, And that was good because it still put the hygiene and discipline of releasing, and put the QA exercise and those sort of stuff like that, without the drama of that big process at the end. Any other thoughts? Parting words of wisdom? I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot from you. It's been good. So hopefully it was very enjoyable to you. And I'll be hanging around for a little bit. Thank you very much.